Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas visiting with Pastor Chuck Schumacher and Pat Fellman about a gathering for prayer taking place tonight, 6 o'clock at High Mill Church of the Resurrection. And what do you hope comes from this? I know we're all going to go and we're going to pray, we're going to vote, and then what?
And that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, we think that our community, that we're in trouble. Our nation is in trouble. We're far too polarized. We're broken. We need to come together. We need healing. We need healing as a nation. We need healing as a community. I need to be able to sit down with the person from the opposite political party and be able to share some thoughts and some ideas and everything and still remain friends. And that's gotten to the point that that's pretty tricky now. So I don't know, Susie. I said to Pastor Chuck that you are an idea person. We need to look at ways to have fun together. Mm-hmm. We need to be able to not only talk to each other, but truly listen to each other. And we don't listen to each other. Not truly.
Your thoughts on this? Because when we see town halls taking place, who wants to go to a shouting match?
Right.
So is there a way to talk civilly anymore? Have we had that modeled enough by even leadership on how to talk civilly to one another about an exchange of different ideas?
People are so angry, it makes it difficult to do that. And somehow we have to bring down the level of the emotions involved. And I think setting up guidelines before a town hall, if we're to do something like that we're not here to shout at one another. We're here to hear each other out and to see what we can glean from one another to make the situation better.
I mentioned to Pastor Chuck today that our family represents the nation. We have 4 children. 2 of them are pro-administration. 2 of them are anti-administration. We have gotten to the point that we agree to disagree. And I think with our friends, we have to reach that point that, okay, I hear you and I understand your concern. And you've understood my concern and my passion in certain areas. And now we just have to agree that we're going to disagree. Mm-hmm. And there's really nothing wrong with that. I mean, we need to be able to do that.
Well, in not too very long, a lot of families are going to be gathering around a Thanksgiving table.
Exactly.
And need to have conversation.
Exactly.
we also, in my extended family, have topics we just don't go there. And politics is one of them.
Yeah.
So we just don't go there, which is honestly a little sad.
It is sad.
How do you get a new perspective, a new slant on something if you're not willing to listen to someone? Your thoughts on that?
I believe that a lot of this began way back with the Gore-Bush election when the Supreme Court got involved. Remember how long we waited, the chats being counted, and then the press got involved and started giving their opinions. That's when a lot of this anger really began, I believe personally, that people began to doubt and to trust and thinking the elections have been stolen and the Russians are involved and all these kinds of things. So I think we have to retrace and go back to things that really matter. We have to have leaders who are willing to sit down across the aisle, Republican and Democrat, to hear one another out instead of trying to get a point across, to look at ideas that we can put together to make the country better. Because the world's waiting. They're waiting for us.
And the world is praying for us.
Big time.
What's so important about local elections? I mean, we're not voting for a president tomorrow. We're voting for governors and, so forth. But it is more local, and I know they say all politics is local. But what's important about tomorrow?
Grassroots level, the people that we elect, they form our school boards, attitudes, mores. Everything is shaped beginning at a grassroots level. So when you get good people at the bottom, it's going to percolate up.
I hear people say, when you get to the judges, because they're not supposed to be partisan, I don't know who has my values. I'm not sure who. Is there a place a person can go, yet as late as today, before tomorrow, to find out backgrounds from people and where they stand on issues that you hold dear?
That it's a difficult one, Susie, particularly about judges, because they are not supposed to be partisan. And many of the candidates refuse to answer certain questions that, for instance, you and I in particular, and Pastor Chuck too, would be very concerned about. I've gone face to face with several of them and about that very issue. So that's a tough one.
I'll say this. I think it's okay for me to say I'm going to look for somebody who's pro-life.
I am too,
all
Susie.
across the board. And I know sometimes that's Democrat, sometimes that's Republican, sometimes it's not Republican, sometimes it's not, often it's not Democrat. So I'm going to be looking, I think that is the slavery issue of our generation. That one is a deal breaker for me.
It is for me too. There's no compromising in that area for me.
That's where I am. And I want to know, what does that judge running for office think? Because we are influenced by our core values. And I know they are supposed to remain nonpartisan, and they're just supposed to weigh, the law and just the rule of law. Thank goodness for it. But you're going to be filtering things through where you stand on certain issues.
Sometimes you have to be aware of what they're doing once they're elected. I mean, you have to really follow that. And once you see areas that you're very concerned about, remember that judge comes up for re-election. And that's really when you can perhaps have an effect.
And they're asking for their jobs again.
The whole Kavanaugh issue that we just went through politically in our country, that whole thing was motivated by whether you're pro-life or anti-life.
I believe that too.
Behind the scenes, it was all about that. And that's why there was such an uproar in trying to keep him out of there. What's interesting, just a side issue, and it's really sobering. In our country, there's approximately some 40 million African Americans. It is estimated without abortion happening in our country, it would be close to 96 million. That's sobering. It would be 96 million.
Tragic.
As opposed to 44 million.
People who know their history would know that was the goal of Margaret Sanger.
Yep.
That was what this was all about. And yet under the disguise of helping a group of people to almost obliterate that group of people is just evil. And I'm just going to say it, and I might not be on tomorrow after saying all of this. But, it's just, that seems, there are some things that are black and white to me. That is not an issue that is a shade of gray. So sorry about that. That's where I am on that. But
I agree with you 100%.
Well, but it seems to me that there are a lot of minorities now awakening to that fact, because there seems to be some pushback about that whole issue.
Let's look at our friends Walter and Darlene Moss.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, I can't think of a more powerful couple in this community in regards to pro-life. They have dedicated their ministries to pro-life. So thankful for them.
And they will be here tonight at the prayer meeting.
Yes.
What will they be talking about? Will they be talking about pro-life issues, or where it's not going to be political? We're just praying, aren't we?
They're praying. But knowing them the way I know them, I strongly suspect that they are going to be praying for the sanctity of human life. I mean, how difficult is that? It's not an area to argue about. God created life. God created us in the womb. He said He knew us in the womb. That's probably how their prayers will go.
How about you? What's on your heart that you're going to be praying for tonight?
I want to see in this country the kind of revival that we experienced back in the 70s. When the Jesus Revolution happened.
Oh, wow.
I was in California watching 5,000 people on a weekend getting baptized in the Pacific. In the Catholic Church, the amazing outpouring of the Holy Spirit that impacted millions of people across the country. Young people, drug addicted, alcohol, being delivered overnight. Roughly
miracles happening
everywhere.
Yeah.
Usually every 50 to 60 years across this country, there's been a move of revival. And we are due right now for that. If we're looking at 50 to 60 years, I just want to see a generation of young people again that are excited about Jesus, that want to serve Him, or willing to lay down their lives for Him. And I believe that with all my heart, that when we hit rock bottom, oftentimes, that's what takes place next.
When you think back, for instance, on Reverend Billy Graham, I mean, everybody loved him. Everybody, either side. He was the pastor to every single president. And now you look at his son, Franklin Graham, who I just absolutely adore, but he is under such attack. And, so that has really changed. So that's exactly where we need to be praying, Pastor, because we need another Christian revolution.
We do.
You've said that young people are skeptical politically. What about spiritually? What do you see in young people in the church right now?
I see an attitude of where it's cool to be a Christian. You come to church.
Is it?
You put your time in. For really kids that are converted, that are believers, it's a cool thing to do. But beyond that, it's like when their faith is being maybe tested, being challenged. I see a lot who just sort of back off into oblivion. I don't see that fire like I saw back in the day. And that's not anybody's fault. I think a lot of our churches have become rather lukewarm and lackadaisical in our approach to evangelism, into reaching out to people. And kids, I think, have been raised in that kind of environment. We need to get the fire back in the church. We need to get the Holy Spirit back, the ways that it's been when revivals hit.
What has social media done to this generation?
It wears it down. I mean, everywhere you look, there's just a negativity and, sexual kinds of issues. We were sitting at an airport 4 days ago, and you know how when you're half awake, half asleep, you're flying and you're not paying attention. So I was looking at the screen in front of me and not really paying attention, and suddenly my friend elbowed me. He goes, "Do you realize what you're looking at?" And I didn't, because I was really half asleep. It was pure pornography.
Oh, my gosh.
And there were all these children sitting around in this restaurant. And one of our people kind of jumped up, and the waiter came over and he changed the channel. But the fact they had it on, they didn't care. Somebody had to say something. But you see that common today.
Well, next time you go out to dinner, because I did this the other night, I started looking around. Look around at all the tables and see what they're doing. They're not talking to each other.
No.
They're all adults and children are on their phones. And I'm guilty too. I have to make myself put that doggone phone away. Yep. Because, we don't, that's where we're talking about communication. We don't communicate with each other unless we're sending text messages.
It's become toxic out there politically. Yeah. Your thoughts on that, just in general, about seems like one of the greatest inventions to be able to share prayer requests, evangelize, a great invention. I think it's kind of God's little joke that it was invented by an atheist, and here it is being used for good, but also
hurting families.
Used for the other as well. Extremely divisive.
Benjamin Franklin at the Constitutional Convention said this. A lady came walking out as he was leaving the building at the meeting, and she said, "Mr. Franklin, what have you given us?" He said, "We've given you a document that if you do two things, if number one, as a people, we remain faithful to God and believe in strong moral fabric, it can last forever. Give up on either one of the two, on God, belief in God, or in a strong moral stature, we cannot exist." And so today we see that, and the media is an epitome of that, beginning with the social media, the bullying that's going on, the suicide rate, all of these things. I mean, this might sound rather ultra-spiritual, but we're living in the times that Jesus talked about before his return. We see across the board evil pervading our society, and but as believers, we're called to stand up and to make our voice known, to be the light of the world. And that's what we're going to do Monday night tonight. We're going to be the light of the world in Canton, Ohio. Where the righteous dwell, the city is blessed. Proverbs, and that's where we take a stand.
And bringing the good news, the good news of Jesus Christ.
That's right.
No matter what happens tomorrow, God's on his throne. We know who is really in charge, no matter who thinks they are in charge.
Amen.
God is in charge.
That's right.
We want to be there tonight.
It's open to all.
Awesome.
Right across the street from the Glen Oak High School, right next door to the fire station, and as you said, right down from the fun park.
We're at High Mill Church of the Resurrection tonight, starting at 6:00. Chuck Schumacher, Pat Fellman, thank you so much for bringing this to our community.
And come casual.
Awesome.
Right.
See you then.
See you then. Okay.
Thank you.